So we're just working our way around, being careful not to be in such a rush that we catch our fingers with our pruners. It's happened. Hi there, my name is John Holden. I graduated from the University of Connecticut in 1992 with a bachelor's degree in ornamental horticulture. In 1993, I started Land Designs Unlimited. I design, install, and maintain landscapes for homeowners in Upper Fairfield County, Connecticut. Today, I'd like to share my passion with you. How you doing today, folks? About 3 years ago, I stood in this very same spot and I filmed my second video ever, which was titled How to Prune Evergreen Shrubs Selectively. Well, it was my second video ever, and while I agree the content was awesome, I think the presentation left a little bit to be desired. So today we're going to take a second shot at that video and see if we can film something a little bit shorter about how to selectively prune Japanese holly. Now, I'm doing a series on selective pruning evergreen shrubs, so today we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes about how to prune. If you want some more information about the how and why to prune selectively, I'll put a link to a video right here, which is a good overview about selective pruning. The selective pruning methods we're going to use today are good for any of the upright Japanese holly. Ilex crenata steeds, Ilex crenata Chesapeake, and there's one called Ilex crenata Schwoibel. Schwoibel's upright, and all those, this method of pruning would work fine for. I'm going to be using my Felco pruners today, and my pruners have a nice light coat of oil on them. They're nice and sharp. And if you want to see a nice video I made, it's a pretty short one about how to keep your pruners in top form all the time. I'm going to put a link to a video right here because it's really so important to have nice sharp pruners where you're not fighting to prune through something. What we're going to do with this Japanese holly today is we're going to take it down in 3 steps. First, we're going to reach deep into the shrub, see if we can prune out some of the really long branches and where the foliage is real congested. Then we're going to go through, cut it a little bit lower into the shrub, thin it out some more, again trying to spread out the congested foliage. And then finally we're just going to go back and just do a light touch-up on the outside to give the shrub a rounded appearance, but we don't want it to be so rounded that it looks like it was sheared. Every year you do this, and the more you open things up and cut into that layer on the outside of the shrub, the more open it's going to be. So the first thing we're going to do is just take our pruners out, reach deep into the shrub, anywhere we see that the foliage is really tight. So this branch is a good example of how big a piece I would take the first time around. So this is easily, this would be about a foot here. This is about 18 inches of growth I just took off. And you really can't even tell I cut it. But when you're pruning the Japanese holly, you want to prune back to where there's either a crotch in the shrub. See how there's a crotch right here? So this is where you want to prune back to. So you would prune just above this crotch. Or if you're pruning the holly, you want to prune just above the leaves. Sometimes there's leaves on woody stems, and you just want to go in and cut right above the leaf. So the first thing we're doing is just going through the shrub and looking for really tall pieces and just clipping them out. Just thinning things out. Reach way in there. And some of these, if you're doing this the first time, are not going to have any foliage on it. And even if there's no foliage, they're still going to grow. But if it's your first time, you know, just cut a few where there's no foliage and then wait 3 or 4 months. You'll see the new growth coming, and then you'll understand how, you know, it is going to come back. We've gone ahead and pruned out deep into the shrub, tried to thin it out a bit. On this shrub, I wanted to take it down a bit, so I went fairly, heavily into the shrub, and I've got a pretty good amount of clippings on the ground here. And I just want to say that I think it's been about 1.5 years, possibly 2 years since I pruned this shrub. So things are definitely, this is overgrown. Ideally, I would want to go through and renewal prune these shrubs or selectively prune these shrubs like once in the early spring, once in June or July, and maybe even once like in August, just a little bit at a time to keep it where it needs to be. Don't be afraid to cut deeply in the shrub. It's going to come back. This is a branch that I would have cut, you know, 2 years ago or so. You see here, there's a big thick branch. So all this growth flushed out, but I didn't want the shrub to be, I didn't want to cut it up here, because if I cut it up here, it was going to be, you know, another foot taller. So I came through and I cut it down lower, and you can't even tell I cut into the shrub. 2 years ago or so, I would have cut around here, and I just didn't want to have all this growth at the top of the shrub, because if I cut each and every one of these little branches, it's going to just, each time I cut, you're going to get 2 or 3 more branches, and it's just going to be congested. So I took it back farther. What we're going to do now is just take our pruners, and we're not going to go super deep into the shrub. We're just going to cut, I don't know, maybe 6 inches, a foot in, and just see if we can give the shrub a little bit of shape. If you've got a shrub that was sheared, when you get to step 2, you're still going to be reaching into that really dense sheared foliage and trying to thin it out a bit. This one, the shrub is going to end up looking a little bit looser or more open, just because it was so overgrown. By the time I cut it back, of course it's going to be open. If you had a sheared shrub, or the growth wasn't so overgrown, you don't need to go this far into the shrub. But I think you can see now, I've gotten this shrub down at least 2 feet, possibly 2.5 feet lower than it was, and you really can't even tell that it was pruned. So what we're going to do now is take out our pruners and just do a little bit of pruning around the outside here to just see if we can kind of give it that final shape. Folks, we are all set with pruning our Japanese holly. And one thing I don't think I said clearly enough in the last clip was, when you're doing that final pruning and you're kind of smoothing things out, you know, don't prune everything on the same level. If you're going to like prune a branch, take it back a little bit in, you know, some at the same level of the outside. The key when you're selectively pruning is you want to make sure to have variation in your heights. This plant, again, isn't really a classic selective pruning example. This shrub was definitely overgrown, but it's a great example just to show you that, you know, if you step back 10 feet, you really can't tell it was pruned. Had I come through with a hedge clipper and just made a ball out of this, you would be able to tell it was pruned pretty well. While I was pruning, I did end up finding 3 bird's nests from last year, and I'm fairly certain that pretty soon, you know, they'll be back again. Thanks for watching today, folks. I'm just going to end the video with a few shots, walk-arounds of how things look. But if you want to try renewal pruning, I've been doing this now for probably 6-8 years. You know, the first time you do it, don't go crazy. You don't have to go as far as I did. Every time I do it, I watch how the shrub responds, and I've been learning a little bit more about it. So give it a try on some shrubs, see how it works out, and if you like it, you know, keep trying it. Thanks for watching today, folks, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.